All right, well, welcome again. We are so glad that you are going to be with us this evening. Excited to share with you a little bit about the professional herbalism program at Portland Community College, and then we'll hear some from KP Khalsa. My name is Amy Evans. I'm one of the training coordinators at the Institute for Health Professionals, and I've had the honor of working with the herbalism program for going on 3 years now. Lots of wonderful feedback from the students on this program, and it is a suite in many of our in our integrative healthcare programs. So it's one of many that help prepare professionals to work either in functional nutrition, in Ayurveda yoga, and in herbalism. So we're really excited to have KP be the lead instructor in this program and share his amazing wealth of knowledge. I'll let KP introduce himself now.
Hi, folks. KP Pulsick here. I'll have a little bit more formal introduction with some slides here in a moment, but I am the instructor for the program. Let's talk a little bit about the program first. Amy, is this, you want to proceed here?
Sure, that sounds great. So initially we're going to cover some more about the program, and then we'll lead more into some of KP's, what he's going to share on the special topic that we chose for this evening. So we'll start off with just why study herbalism. I think a lot of you probably already have your own personal ideas and reasons behind your interest in a program like this. Obviously, alternative healthcare is a growing field. More and more people are finding that it is a really valuable resource in their healthcare routines and working to help heal illnesses without some of the negative side effects and that can be associated with other medicines. And they're accessible. You know, some people love growing herbs, others exploring and discovering. That's recognized around the world, and so it is growing not just locally, but we have students internationally participating in this program and exploring and connecting with each other in their areas around herbs and the study of that. Obviously, it has tremendous use and application. A lot of people come to study this just for their personal self-care, as well as supporting friends and family. Or people are looking to learn this to add to their professional work, and whether they are health coaches, nutritional professionals, we've had dentists, doctors, acupuncturists, a wide variety of healthcare providers, massage therapists, energy practitioners, all kinds of people that are looking to either incorporate this into the career or transition into a career in herbalism. So KP will talk a lot more about that and some of those different roles and options later with you. Herbal medicine is really portable, whether you're using tinctures or herbs in your cooking and things. It's accessible, portable, you can share it, use it in any surroundings regardless of the access to electricity and pharmacies and things like that. So, and it certainly is a career that lends to many diverse backgrounds. It really bridges a lot of cultural divides and is utilized in so many circles. Healing is something that impacts each and every one of us in our own ways. And so that opportunity to really grow and explore in a career like this is really exciting. There's certainly some high earning potential, and it's a really relatively low cost of study. We'll talk about the credentialing more later, but really relative to some of the degree-seeking programs and master's programs, entering the field of herbalism and integrative healthcare is really quite cost-effective and rewarding for a lot of people. And learning it at this time lets you attain your credentials and your expertise and knowledge while all of the different legalities are changing in each state. And so if you can get in on that ground floor, then you'll be grandfathered in more than likely in many states and countries with that level of expertise and things. KP, would you like to add any more to some of that?
No, no. We'll dive into more detail about these things later, but that excellent overview.
Okay, great. I'll let you cover this one, please.
We're there, career options.
Yes. Would you like to speak a little bit about health coaching and consulting?
Yeah, herbal medicine is uh, a segment of the whole natural healing world. And we have a very unusual situation in North America in that we've separated out different what we call modalities or ways of approaching natural healing from the entire pie. The only credential that we have in the United States really that uh, attempt to teach somebody everything about natural medicine is naturopathy. And the challenge there, of course, is that your training runs the risk of being a mile wide and an inch deep. So I teach at a couple of naturopathic schools. I'll talk a little bit about that later. Those folks learn 17 modalities, and of course, the amount that you could actually learn about each modality is limited in 4 years. So in most places in the world, people have a very broad spectrum natural healing uh, background. We've decided to chop it up by these limited credentials. So there are acupuncturists who needle, there are massage therapists who touch with the hand, there are nutritionists who talk about food and supplements. These things then are sort of siloed and we learn about them individually. So many people have these days credentials in something like health coaching, which is very broad to help people figure out how to work on their life and their health, but they need some uh, substantial content to be able to add to that. So we have people with these kinds of approaches, health coaches, advisors of various kinds, people work in gyms. It's a wide variety, learning particular modalities. So herbal medicine is a modality. That's what this course focuses on, is the use of herbs. In this course, you learn more about herbs than any other uh, course of study would give you. So if you're studying acupuncture, you might learn some herbs on the side. If you're studying nutrition, you might learn some herbs on the side. This is all herbs. It's kind of a strange way to do it because people have to then, they want to pick up another modality, they have to take another whole course. But we're able to dig deeply into herbal medicine in this case. And then there are various jobs and industries. So I'll slice and dice this a little bit more here later as we talk. Amy?
Great, thank you. Um, so is herbalism right for you? I mean, as we mentioned already a little bit, there's such diversity within this field that many people find a connection point. But as people are contact me and are kind of curious which way to go, these are some of the qualities and characteristics that I invite them to explore if this is something that they're looking to discover more deeply or integrate more into the work and or hobby and volunteer work, or definitely in their career as they're moving forward. Herbalism is obviously very healing oriented. It's at the foundation of a lot of what we're studying and what is being taught in this, regardless of where it originated, in which area of medicine that you're studying. That healing drive is behind a lot of this. So a lot of people love to support people in becoming well and then gaining their vitality back and their well-being there. It is client-facing, so whether you're wanting to work with people in a one-on-one capacity, which is frequent, or teaching classes in groups, like we'll be doing in this program here, or for creating a variety of ways to partner with clinics and other organizations and places where you get to interact with people. That client-facing and that client-based relationship can be really, really rewarding for people. Obviously, there is so much to learn and so many ways that herbalism connects to different aspects of healing and medicine and individuality, that it presents some really engaging challenges for a lot of people. It's always growing. There's so much more to learn. The bioscience pieces of it are increasingly being revealed as modern science continues to study and find more of the chemical compounds and elements within herbs that that kind of support this ancient knowledge that many healers through many different cultures have recognized for a long time. So lots to learn there. And of course, it's often very fulfilling when you can help people find new pathways to support their well-being and their healing. So that's just really rewarding for a lot of people. It's obviously steeped in tradition and the natural elements. And so some people are really passionate about being able to make their own herbal tinctures or go out and gather in the woods and integrate this into some of their weekend activities and hiking and just that discovery and leading trips for other people to better connect with the natural surroundings, the healing that is in nature, as well as the elements of nature that they can bring into their internal medicine and things. And there's always more and more being added. And so having a more modern approach and blending this with a variety of sciences is something that a lot of people are embracing more and more. Keith, would you like to add anything to any of that?
This course focuses on traditional knowledge merged with modern knowledge. So we do study plant chemistry in each of the terms so that we understand things from that perspective, and then we stay up to date on various new studies and information coming out. So it's a mixture of the kinds of things people would have done 2,000 years ago and the things people would have learned about 2 days ago. I do this sort of thing full time, and so I'm constantly immersed in new developments, theories, and communicating with my colleagues, attending conferences, things like that. So definitely a mixture of both those approaches.
Great, thank you. And that lends to part of what we're offering through the professional herbalism program at PCC, the Institute for Health Professionals. We really loved being able to create a program where you're taught by an expert who embraces and has such depth of knowledge in so many different areas of herbal medicine. So through this program, you learn the Ayurveda, Chinese and Western herbs, some of the overlap and some of the distinct differences between some of these herbal traditions and practices, and when to best utilize different aspects of each. Really helps create that well-rounded and resourceful aspect, because not everyone can source everything as easily as in some parts of the world as they can other places. So being able to understand where things are complemented and where things are very specific is helpful. The program, we really believe in giving you that opportunity to learn from each other, as well as certainly learn live from the instructor. So we have the live stream delivery program. Many more people, thanks to COVID, are much more familiar with Zoom, but when we started off, that was pretty revolutionary. And so you're able to learn and teach and engage with KP and with your fellow classmates on a weekly basis. We'll talk a little bit more about the schedule later, but you'll have a couple of hours every Wednesday live if you would like. And then those classes are also recorded, so you can go back and revisit the content at any time and still be able to connect. We really have always attracted a wide variety of students and professionals, and each of those are bringing their own expertise with their unique questions and vantage points and passions, and sharing that with each other really helps promote a really positive environment for learning and growing together. Many people are able to share different resources in the online platform that we have that is complemented with Zoom. So you'll have opportunities to connect and share resources and information in between each of your weekly classes as well. Being part of a larger college system also gives you access to a lot of resources. We have IT staff. You actually have access to free software, the Microsoft Office suite and things if you would like through your student account. You qualify for that. And then you have access to all of the PCC libraries resources. And so a lot of people love being able to take advantage of what the college offers and go in and utilize some of the libraries to do journal reports and research and explore areas that might be difficult to access outside of a college environment and things, or would be costly to access and things. So there's many more student resources that are available, and many that can be accessed whether you are local to Portland or whether you are international. So happy to connect you with more of those as the need may arise, but those are some of the main ones that most students really appreciate having access to. And then this program also, it's really in-depth and provides people with such practical and comprehensive knowledge that many are really delighted with everything that they've learned in that first year of the program. But we have structured this in a way that for students that want to study more in depth and obtain their national certification through the American Herbalist Guild, you would continue on with the second year of the program directly with KP Khalsa and his institute there. Same structure, same kind of video, live stream, Zoom, teaching format and things. So it's a really easy transition. And it's those 2 years combined that qualify you, provide the educational qualifications that you need to meet the American Herbalist Guild certification. American Herbalist Guild has a few other requirements for you, but these two things are the hardest to obtain and will meet that educational requirement that is needed.
All good.
Great. And we'll continue on with a little variation of this. Again, just provide some real world hands-on learning to help people really leave the program and be ready to work in the field, whether you're wanting to teach or coach or write blog articles on herbs or work at a natural food store or help create new formulas. You'll get a lot of the knowledge that you need through this program to do that. So some hands-on learning. And if you have specific questions about areas that you're interested in, there's KP is such a wealth of knowledge, and he makes himself available with office hours every Wednesday, as well as through email throughout the week. So you'll have a lot of opportunity to explore if you have some niche questions or areas that you're interested in. Again, this really provides a very solid foundation of knowledge needed to work in herbal medicine and healing in that first year. And for people that want that additional knowledge, which a lot of people do, then they can move on to that second year certificate as well. There's easy advancement to that second year that we already covered. And of course, that combination meets those educational requirements for the American Herbalist Guild.
This course is designed to give you competence after 1 year so that you can go out and treat things that were in your realm of capability. So some people are happy with that level of education. They've passed all the tests, they've gotten all the information, and they can be sort of a family herbalist, a clan herbalist. Some people, many actually, after having their 1 year certificate, have gone out and established a substantial business. We just got an email today from a woman who was in this class in 2015, who told us that after the class she moved to Hawaii and opened up an herb store in practice and has been doing well in business ever since. So you will be certified after the 1 year. The American Herbalist Guild requires the second year of academic training and then some internship and things like that. So that's something that you would do. So PCC doesn't offer that second year. Many people find the 1 year to be adequate. If you want the second year, then that's available, and then you'd be certified after that second year. They have different orientations and different objectives. So for people who are taking this course just for personal use or to help their family, usually the 1 year certificate is adequate.
So as KP just mentioned, this really is clinically oriented. We're training practitioners, people that will be working with other people and guiding them around herbs. And as he said, that foundational program this first year really achieves a great level of competency and supports you in that. It does require 3 terms to complete. And we offer those in the fall term, the winter term, and the spring term. So we take the summers off, and the same topics are taught each of those terms. So every fall, it's the same topics, winter and spring, which allows you to be able to begin the program at any time. So you can pop in. It's not cohort based. It allows you to take advantage of the offerings as you're able to and at the right time for you to start. Many people find this a really convenient program. That this live stream platform is quite effective so that you can see each other and utilize a lot of the virtual classroom learning experience where there's breakout groups, there's polls, there's sharing, there's a lot of online discussions. They have created more and more opportunities for people to connect in this classroom and really move a lot of those same features that we knew growing up online and things. So you really get to be a part of that community and grow together. And then, as I mentioned, the recordings of each live stream class are posted within 24 hours, often within a couple hours, but definitely within 24 hours of the class itself. So we have some people, we always recommend joining live if at all possible, so that you can have your questions answered and share in any of the discussions that take place. But we've had many, many people who are on different time zones or for a variety of reasons aren't able to attend all of the classes live. Life happens, and occasionally people need to miss. So those recordings have been their primary way of engaging with a lot of the classes, especially for some of our international students. That said, we do offer 2 different times for the program each Wednesday, and that has allowed people to pick and choose the times that work best in their schedule. And occasionally people will pop into both classes just to have the information, get to hear it presented a little differently, or get to revisit it and reinforce some of what they had previously seen. As I mentioned before, KP offers office hours every week, and so he's available. Those are also on Wednesdays, so you can talk to him over the phone, through Zoom, email, back and forth. Lots of options there for people to engage. And we already know that this covers Ayurveda, Chinese, and Western herbal approaches. KP, would you like to add anything?
No, that all sounds good. Maybe I should take this one. So the kinds of things we cover in these terms, we do several body systems each term. There are 10 body systems overall that we talk about. So each term we do 2, 3, or 4 body systems where we learn how to treat that particular body system, respiratory, digestive, whatever it may be. We have specific units to talk about Ayurveda and Chinese herbalism. Over the course of the year, we study a bit over 200 individual herbs. That's called Materia Medica, where rather than talking about herbs in their therapeutic context by what they're going to do for a particular area of the body, we talk about the herb itself individually. So every herb is covered at least twice over the course of the year, once in therapeutics and once in Materia Medica. We have a plant chemistry unit each term. We talk about preparations. Those are things like capsules versus tinctures or teas. Talk about formulating, and then some herb history every time. So these are the details for the body systems that we cover. We also have an integrative unit each term where we talk very briefly about several other natural healing modalities. So for example, homeopathy in fall term, vitamins and minerals in winter term. We're not going to turn you into a nutritional therapist in the brief time we have there, but just to give you a basic idea of how they overlap so you can refer appropriately or learn what other kinds of things you might want to study, something like that. Amy?
Thanks. And KP, I'm getting a couple messages. People are having a little challenging time hearing you. If you could speak up or maybe use a headset, please, while I present on this.
Means in my sound situation, that might help. Let's try that.
Sounds great. So as I mentioned before, this is 3 terms for the professional herbalism program. So many people will choose, you can start this September. Many people love to start learning programs in the fall. A lot of us are just socially conditioned for school goes back, resumes in the fall. So we will be starting the program the middle of September, around September 23rd, I believe, for this year. But every term we'll start again, and you're welcome to join anytime. So again, the fall, winter, and spring are the terms for the herbalism class. Those live stream classes where you get to plug in live, just like we are now, and ask questions back and forth and be part of that live learning, happen on Wednesdays, starting at 2 p.m. Pacific time or 5:45 p.m. Pacific time. We found that this allows a lot of flexibility depending on work schedules, time zones, all kinds of ways to plug in. But again, both of those live stream classes each time are recorded. So every week there's 2 new recordings. They cover a lot of the same topics each time. I mean, KP's utilizing the same slide deck. He's put a lot of time and energy into selecting the most appropriate preparation materials and presentation options for communicating the herbal medicine and information for you. So you can come to either time. And as I mentioned, occasionally people really, especially audio learners, love to hear that information delivered twice. And so they may come to both presentations, but the same topics are covered at both times on every Wednesday. There is some study and preparation to help everybody be successful. And so before beginning, once you register for the class, we will send you the book list. You only need to purchase the books once throughout the year. And so that initial term, plan to purchase your textbooks for the program, and then those are used throughout each of the terms. We do have online discussion boards. KP will give you all of the reading assignments and post some additional links and a lot of other supplemental material to help with your learning. So all of that is built into a larger platform that you'll have access to as a student. And again, if technology isn't quite your thing, don't worry. We have a dedicated student help desk who are excellent and trained at supporting students in finding their way online, navigating the system. It's pretty intuitive, but if it's their first online class, it's always nice to have some hand-holding, especially for those instances where computer updates and everything starts looking different. But most people find it very user-friendly and again, just quite accessible and intuitive there. We've mentioned the books. I'll send you the book list there, and the books are pretty reasonable. You can purchase those from anywhere that you like. So some people go out and source them from their favorite independent bookstore or look for used copies. And many people love having these books as part of starting their library. So there tend to be things that people want to hold on to once they've explored this as in such an in-depth program as this. Great resources. Every term of the program, we have a tuition of $999. And being a part of the larger college system, we are excited to be able to offer some interest-based payment plans. Many people select our 3-time payment plan over the course of each term. So that really helps break that up and make it really manageable payment chunks for everyone. In addition to the tuition, there is a $20 technology fee that gets added each term. So don't be surprised by that, but yeah. I see that some people are adding some questions in the chat, so I will field those in a few minutes, and then feel free to keep adding questions to the chat, and I will, especially if they're pertain to KP, I will help ask him those on everyone's behalf as we move through the program.
Just to clarify, this is modular learning. So modular learning is not familiar for everyone. So we have 3 starting points, the beginning of each of the academic terms. The content of each term is different, but they're not sequential. So you don't have to start in the fall and work your way through. There's no particular timeline. You can start in the winter and the spring, and we typically have about equal number of people that join us in the spring and the winter. We are coming up on fall now, so that would be the time for you to get started. But if that time doesn't work for you, you could start in winter or spring, and you would just pick up the other modules then that you needed. If you do it all in one academic year, fall, winter, spring, you're done, you've got your certificate. If you start in the winter, you could do winter and spring, and then we have summer off and pick up the fall, something like that. The second year is designed the same way. It's modular with no particular sequence. So if you start any particular time in those three modules, you can finish up the third and then roll right into the second year. Again, PCC is only offering year one. The two classes on Wednesdays are the same content. We're just doing it for people in different time zones. And so we'll cover the same material in the 2 o'clock session and the 5:45 session. You don't need to come to both. You can choose one or the other. Okay, so let's dive into a little bit more detail here.
Before we do that, we've got a couple of questions in the chat I'd love to get answered here. We had one question about are recordings available if we experience network issues? I'm not sure if you're talking about this presentation or the classes themselves, but yes, there are recordings to both. So everyone who signed up for this webinar, we're recording it and we will email you a recording for that in the next few days. And there's a question about scholarships. We don't offer scholarships through the Institute for Health Professionals, but we accept scholarships. So if you have scholarships through other programs, grants, educational stipends, or your organization pays for a certain amount of continuing education, we accept all of that, and I'm happy to connect you with our financial team to accept those payments and work with any of that. There was also a question about self-study and what would we suggest each week. I'll have KP chime in on this a little bit, but as a college program, our typical recommendation is 1 to 3 hours of study and prep time for every hour of class time. So since you have we'll call it 2.5 hours of class time each week, I'd recommend that breakdown for those classes. So 2 to 6, 2 to 8 hours of study each week should be sufficient. And a lot of that depends on each person individually. There's what you need to pass the class, and then there's all of the wonderful recommended additional readings depending on your areas of interest and things like that. So a lot of people find rabbit holes that they want to dive into and go down. All of that is voluntary, but certainly enhances your learning and gives you the opportunity to check in with KP about what you're exploring and how that may pertain and get some great questions answered that may develop for you through that. KP, what do you recommend? Is that?
That's about right for homework. This course is designed for adult learners, so you get out of it what you put into it. And with minimum effort, you could probably pass the tests and then you would be certified. But if you want to go deep, that opportunity is there. So if you study extra, there's plenty of, you can put in as many hours a week as you want digging into these things, then you can bring your questions to class and we can go as deep as you feel like you would like to. It's quite variable. Some people this is launching them into a whole new area of life and occupation. And other people are less interested in going into it in as much detail. So you get out of it what you put in.
Had a question about emailing out the book list early. Happy to do that. If you just want to send me an email, I can send you the book list. The course starts for the fall term starts September 23rd. But as KP mentioned, this is module based, so each term has its own start date, and you can choose any term to begin the program. We do really encourage you to register at least a week before the program and a minimum of 10 days before if you plan to utilize the PCC payment plan. Right now, to register, we'll cover this a little bit later if people want, but since we've had a couple questions about the application process, you would apply to PCC's non-credit program. So that should make a very short application, but that is necessary for your student ID and some unique identifiers to be developed to protect your identity and make sure that the system is really secure. There's actually a manual part to that process. So it can take 3 to 5 days for that ID to be generated and sent to you. And then once you have that ID, you can register either over the phone by calling or preferably online, and then you can pay for the program and set up your payment plan all in that same process if you like. The recorded lectures are available through the end of the term, generally actually a week after the end of the term there, so that you have plenty of time to go back and revisit them. And I will be, the cost for the books, I will look that up and share that with you later. I have that. It's quite a range because there's the used, some people prefer the used books versus the new ones, so I don't have that at the top of my mind. And KP, can you speak to the certification that you award after the second year?
Yeah, it's just a certification of completion that you've met all the requirements of this course. It does fulfill the academic hours requirement for the American Herbalist Guild. The American Herbalist Guild admits people to their professional credential by peer review. And so they look at your entire history of what you apply with, which would include the 2 years of academic instruction, and then whatever other things that they require. There is an internship required, which is also available through us if you choose to do that. That credential is registered herbalist, and it's the only formal credential available to herbalists in the United States. The American Herbalist Guild is the professional association for practicing clinical herbalists in the United States. So when you go through that process, then you have a valid professional credential that shows that you satisfied the credentials of that particular professional association. Herbalism is not a licensed profession in any state. So if people are practicing it, they're either practicing it under a different credential or they're practicing unlicensed, which is increasingly common these days. So it gives you no particular legal ability to practice. That's why we were talking earlier about now's the time to get in with this sort of thing. If you're interested in practicing herbalism in a more formal way in the future, these things are all going to be only more formalized over time. As different state legislatures decide that they want to establish a credential, they look around for the competence that's required, and they look for a professional association. There's only one, the American Herbalist Guild. So typically they would say, if you have the credential registered herbalist, you can automatically have the state credential in whatever state goes first. Oregon is probably pretty likely to be one of those, and the top group that would do that. So far that hasn't happened, but it's pretty obvious it's going to happen because we've seen the dominoes fall in every other one of these paraprofessions. So that would be the credential to go for. So the PCC certificate at the end of the year 1, and then the certificate at the end of year 2 are just certificates of completion that say that you've met the criteria for that particular course. In terms of books, I would say $100 is a good estimate for the entire year. Sort of depends on your taste in books. If you get them used, easily $100. If you want everything in pristine new condition, then maybe it's going to be a bit more. There are just a handful of books that are required texts, and then there's a whole long list of other optional texts. So one thing about herbalists is that they get the book disease pretty early, and so often people are finding themselves spending more later because that book sounds fascinating. We'll talk about other books in class, and people often grab those, but the required ones are relatively straightforward. Are we ready to proceed, Amy?
I actually have a few more questions, if you don't mind. Have questions about clinical hours and mentorship. That is not a part of the year 1 program offered through PCC. KP, is that an option through either your year 2 or some additional studies that your institute offers?
Yeah, apparently some people are more aware of this American Herbalist Guild process than others. So clinical hours are required. And I would direct you to the website of the American Herbalist Guild if you want to get into all those details. I don't want to say something that turns out to be incorrect, but you will need some clinical hours that we do offer that in a formal way. So that is available. And mentorship is a way to get in some of those clinical hours. So clinical hours can be practicing on your own. It can be studying under the guidance of a mentor. I am a mentor with the American Herbalist Guild. And then, or you can do it in a more formal setting where there's an actual course that gives you those clinical hours. All those things are available. Again, that's for people that are looking to go on to that other credential that's not part of the first year program.
Yeah. We have a lot of other questions here, but I know you have a lot you want to present, so I will start fielding what I can, and then we'll address some more questions towards the end.
Okay, sounds good. All right, so you know what I look like because you're looking at a picture of me. So here I am. I've been a health practitioner for 49 years. Ayurvedic doctor, herbalist, of course, dietitian, nutritionist, and massage therapist. I have credentials in all these fields. I was the next to most recent national president of the American Herbalist Guild. We've already talked about what they're all about, and I was until recently a director for the National Ayurvedic Medical Association. I teach at two naturopathic schools, Bastyr University in Seattle, where I teach Ayurveda and botanical medicine, and I'm in charge of the Ayurveda certificate program there, which is somewhat like this herb program we're talking about at PCC, but Ayurveda oriented. I teach at National University of Natural Medicine, which is in Portland, again, similar subjects. I'm a professor at the Massachusetts College of Pharmacy, where I teach neurology. So I've been spending this 49 years doing a lot of education. I have had a clinical practice that entire time, a lot of focus on teaching and producing educational materials. For 30 years, I was the senior research scientist and medical formulator for Yogi Tea. Well, herbalism today, there are a lot of ideas about what herbalism might be, and often these ideas are not very close to what reality really is. So herbalism was very well established everywhere in the world historically for millennia. Things have changed a bit in our culture due to various political and legal things. Herbalism was obliterated in North America starting at about the turn of the last century and had about a 70-year dark ages. So starting in around 1970, those of us that were interested began to again recreate the whole thing from scratch. And I was one of that small group of people who did that. And then we established the schools and wrote the books and all the institutions and everything. But what ended up happening was that, as is common in our culture, we ended up with a lot of products. It became very product oriented, but not very much professionalism. So the herb market got ahead of people that really knew how to use herbs very well. Now we're trying to catch up. This particular course has been going on for about 35 years. It's been offered at PCC for about 7 years, something like that. So it's very well, the course is very well seasoned. We've worked out the glitches over 35 years, but each year that goes by, we have more and more opportunity for people to become more professional and actually do things with it. So the difference between professional herbalism and grandma herbalism is that in everywhere else in the world, grandma handles about 90% of health issues. Every kind of boo-boo and tummy ache and headache kind of issue, grandma learned from her grandma who learned from her grandma. And we're talking about now educating you for the other 10%, things that are beyond the level of grandma herbalism. In most cultures, traditionally, natural healing has segmented itself into three levels. The family herbalist, people that maybe know 10 or 12 herbs and how to use them, and they can handle, 3/4 of the issues that come up. The clan herbalist, who then might know 100 herbs and know how to use them in many different ways and can handle much more serious things. And then maybe, 2 to 10% of the things that people deal with require a professional. And that's what this course is about, training you to be that person. So it's a seriously oriented academic course that trains you to be a professional with professional levels of knowledge. And we treat you to treat what grandma can't handle. Now, in our culture, the grandma herbalism also was obliterated. So our culture is having difficulty trying to figure out which level they need to engage with. Do they need an expensive professional like you to treat a sore throat? Well, that's something a grandma would have treated in the past, but their grandma doesn't know anything about it. So slowly this is getting worked out. It's taking a long time, but there's a lot of confusion in our culture about what herbs can handle, which herbs can be used, what kinds of conditions can be treated by professionals. Most people seek out health food store clerks for their herbal advice, and some of the scariest conversations I've ever heard have been in a health food store with clerks talking to people. So we're trying to get out of that and train people like you and make the public aware that you exist so that you can treat at this higher professional level. So herbs as therapy are different than drugs. Herbs are not isolated substances. They have a wide variety of healing constituents in them, but it's largely non-toxic pharmacology. Herbs are not really nutrients. You're going to be taking a few grams of herbs during the day. It's not like we're using them for their vitamin content or their protein content. We're using them to have, if I can say it this way, a drug-like effect without using a drug. So safe natural substances that treat particular kinds of conditions. Herbs are definitely not drugs. Drugs are isolated individual chemical compounds that overwhelm the one pathway that they're being used for. So your body gets this drastic overwhelm of one particular chemical. It does its job very well, but then it creates side effects. It's not that herbal medicine is free of side effects, but it's remarkably free of side effects. So we will study those things, but it's rarely a problem in real life. So drugs are usually synthetic, which means that our body has never seen them before, and our body has to try to figure out how to deal with them, whereas plants, humans have been consuming plants ever since there have been humans, and most of the constituents that are in food plants are also in the same general category as natural herbal medicines. Our bodies know how to deal with them. They've seen them before. Even if your individual body has never seen a particular herb, your ancestors have seen it, and your body has figured out a way to deal with that. So any given herb, thousands of chemicals with a very broad action, which tends to be easier on the body, but still get great clinical results. The active constituents are natural. So herbs are not just drug delivery systems. We've been used to drugs now for, well, the first drugs was synthesized aspirin in 1895 and then rapidly thereafter. So a bit over a century, we've become used to the drug-like approach, and our tendency is to think of herbs as drugs, in a different form, but they're really not. They have substantially different issues, but they're still clinically successful and largely devoid of side effects. The challenge with this whole situation is to figure out the proper thing to use in the proper way. So going to the health food store and sort of bumbling around isn't what's going to work. That's not the way our ancestors did it. That's not what works. So we have to find the right herb for the condition. The person has to be the right quality. That's another matter. The right preparation. You can't just make a tincture out of any old thing. Can't make a tea out of any old thing. And the right potency and dose. Dose is probably the single most confusing and contradictory issue in modern herbalism. Most people don't have results with herbal medicine from the herb store because they don't take enough. So we'll talk about that. The right herb for the condition largely would be based on the physical or mental effect of the herb, for example. So you might say, I want something that treats a headache. Also, we could discuss that in terms of the action that the herb has. So an antibacterial, for example, not treating a particular condition, but having a particular property. Carminative means something that reduces gas. So we learn all these things and figure out the actions of herbs in the body and how they can be used. We could clarify that in terms of a body system, for example. So things that support, let's say, the respiratory tract, something that people are very concerned about now with the whole virus situation. But that herb has to match the individual. So in terms of drugs, there might be several different kinds of antibiotics that you might use for a sinus infection. It might work, but it might work a lot better if those treatments were individualized. So Chinese medicine says, not the disease the person has that's mattered, but the person that has the disease. We treat the person, not the disease. Yes, we talk about diseases and we learn of some pathophysiology and that kind of thing, but bottom line, we need to match it to the person so that it doesn't cause more problems than it solves. The right herb quality, of course, is going to be a factor. So we talk about where we can get these good quality herbs that we want to use. All right, so the question is this right for you? Do you want to study professional herbalism? Who are you and what do you want this for? we've been doing this a long time now, and we know the kinds of people who do well in these kinds of programs. So sometimes it's established professionals. Amy was just talking about doctors, dentists, nutritionists, people that have another license of some kind. Get a lot of those people in these courses. Someone who's a dentist but wants to talk about herbal medicine with their clients, medical doctors who want to go in that direction, all kinds of established professionals. Those people typically make up about 1/3 of the student body. We get a lot of dentists, interestingly, nurse practitioners, people like that. It's also appropriate for people that are starting a career. We're in a situation right now where a whole load of people just lost their jobs and don't know when their jobs are coming back. There's a lot of career transition opportunity now. And we have taken funding from retraining kinds of programs. So if any of you are in that kind of a situation where you're dealing with unemployment and they want you enrolled in some kind of a retraining situation, we've assisted with that many times. And we've graduated people who have then gone on to have a career. This whole process is for self-motivated people. There's no automatic career track. If you're a medical doctor and you graduate from medical school, the red carpet is rolled out for you and there's a job waiting for you somehow, and it's a matter of just following the pathway. Herbal medicine requires you to chart your own path. For some people, that's exciting and effective. For other people, less so. There's no established career path. Many people decide to take this course to treat themselves, people that have difficult health conditions that they've never been able to figure out, or they just want to know how to stay healthy. And the same thing goes for your family. In terms of the kinds of things you can do professionally with this knowledge, I think most people come in with the idea that they're going to have a practice and do individual consultations. There's plenty of opportunity for that out there in the world, because millions of people in the world, not many herbalists. So if you master the material and you have some basic business sense and are able to establish yourself, that can work well. But many other possibilities, people who are health coaches do things like wellness counseling. You can teach with this kind of information. I was very clinically oriented for the first part of my practice and gradually got more and more opportunities to teach. And now I do a lot more teaching and less treating. So public education for people who are interested in that sort of thing. Endless opportunities with these kinds of issues. You can work for a park and recreation department. So many different opportunities. You can participate in educational events. You can go into retail. You can be the credentialed herbalist that helps a particular retail location find the right remedies for people. You can be a technical expert for any company that deals with herbs in any way. So that opens up a lot of possibilities. Industry, people are looking for credentialed people for quality assurance, just that whole wide variety of things. You might decide to get involved in regulatory compliance from professional associations, the government, things like that. There's a real a paucity of information about herbal medicine out there in the world, and finding people that really know what they're talking about is challenging. So if any particular agency, whether it's government or industry or retail or entrepreneur, wants someone who really knows what they're doing, then that's an opportunity for you. Regulation in general, so not just creating regulatory guidelines, but actually being involved in the regulation. You might do quality control for a production company, someone who's a vendor of herbal products. You could be involved in research and product development. I've been responsible for developing thousands of products, something that I do, sort of on the side, and that's an area that you could definitely go into. Import-export, another area that might be of interest to you. So not just clinical practice, but all these other opportunities when you have the knowledge and the employer is looking for somebody that has that knowledge. It's an opportunity for you. So how do you go into this training? I am the principal instructor is what I said here, but really I'm the only instructor. So it's going to be you and me. So So we talked about it being online, and again, now with COVID, everybody's online anyway, but we've been doing this for a long time. So we know how to deliver this material online. We will have a lot of group discussions. We encourage that. 9 months, we talked about that. And we mentioned that the curriculum is based on these American Herbalist Guild standards that lead you eventually toward this credential if you choose to do that. One evening a week, 3 hours. There are 2 sessions. You can attend either one. You don't have to commit to either one. You can attend the earlier session 1 week and the later session the next week if you choose to do that. It is live. I'm there the whole time. So the kinds of things that we're going to talk about, we mentioned these things a little bit briefly, but the 10 body systems, we'll go over those. It is a threefold approach, and that's one of the big advantages of this program is that our curriculum is divided up about equally between Western, Ayurvedic, and Chinese herbs. It's probably the only program in the country that does that. Most herb education programs in North America are Western, probably 90%. Then maybe another 7% are Chinese and another 3% are Ayurvedic, but most schools have a one system approach. The thing is, your clients are going to come in with questions about any herb they see online or see in the health food store, and they don't make those distinctions. And very often, the approach from one of these 3 world medicine systems is what's going to help you crack the case. So I just find it incredibly valuable to get insight from all these. So it's Western herbalism, Ayurvedic herbalism, and traditional Chinese herbalism. So these are the kinds of things that we focus on. We talked about these a little bit earlier. We teach about how to do some wellness assessments, the relationship between herbs and diet, therapeutic herbs that could go in your food, for example, and how to stay healthy. So how to treat disease. That's the main focus of our education, but also we talk about how to keep healthy people healthy. We talked about the preparations, and then we have some discussions about career development and business skills, because of course it is a self-motivated career, as I said. All right, let's talk about the kinds of things we might learn in this kind of a class. Here's some ideas for boosting the immune system of concern to everybody these days, that's for sure. So we'll touch on a few kinds of ideas. This first one is a Chinese herb called dangshen. It's a tonic builder. It's an herb that helps build healthy flesh, heal tissue, support all the various systems of your body. It's very broad spectrum. People call it poor person's ginseng. Ginseng is an exotic herb, an elitist herb. It's it's an herb that people are willing to pay more for than it really deserves. So this one, dangshen, is much less expensive for the results that you get. Should be available in every health food store one way or the other, easily available online. If you live in Portland, there's a plethora of Chinese herb stores that you could go to. They would all have dangshen. So dangshen is a very culinary type herb, and you can cook it into your food. Very common in Chinese medicine to do that. It has these are all just dried roots. If you cook it into a stew, let's say, it will gradually reabsorb the water, and then you can eat these roots. It has a good taste, and it supports immune function, but also muscular stamina, sexual functioning, day-to-day energy, a wide variety of things. Here's the scientific name, Codonopsis. This is an herb that's very food-like. So the dose in Chinese medicine is up to 60 grams. That's a very substantial dose. So it can be made into tea, it can be made into food. It's something that's not going to hurt anybody. You could all try it, and it would be a good thing to get into with the whole COVID situation to help boost your immune situation. The nice thing about the fact that it's very food-like and that it tastes good is that you can make it into soup and just eat it with your family. It's good for anybody. So this would be a good combination of herbs for a tonifying soup. This is not a specially created Chinese herb formula for an individual. This is something that grandma might do. So we have 5 herbs here, and you could mix this with any kind of broth or vegetables or tofu, whatever you wanted. So all these herbs are available. Remember that this presentation is going to be recorded, and you'll have access to it later, so you can go back for some of these details, but you could go to any Chinese herb store, or frankly, probably any Chinese grocery store, and pick these things up and put them together in a way that was tasty for you, that supported immune function. So all of these have that benefit. So you're going to end up with a soup that might look something like this. This is another example, just a slightly different combination. So goji berry, a Chinese herb that's become very popular. I'm sure all of you have heard of it. Last few years, the Cotinopsis, lotus seed, any Chinese grocery store, and then some kind of vegetable stock that might include things like ginger and chestnuts, like we talked about here. So tasty kinds of things. Garlic is something that people often know a lot about and think of as an immune system remedy. Garlic is very good for slow but steady support of the immune system. People often misunderstand garlic. It's not very good for viral infection for an acute situation. So we don't really use garlic to treat cold and flu. Those are viral illnesses, but it's great for bacterial infection. So short term for bacterial infection, if an antibiotic would work for it, garlic is likely to work for it. In the long term, taken, let's say, in modest doses every day over the course of a year, it definitely gives an immune system boost. Let's take an example of that. Here's a study from the Cochrane database system reviews from 2012, 146 people in this study. So that half of them got a garlic supplement, half of them got a placebo. They tracked them for 12 weeks. In the garlic group, there were 23 occurrences of the common cold and 111 days of illness. In the placebo group, there were 3 times as many common colds and days of illness, more than 3 times in terms of the days of illness. So garlic is a preventive for the common cold when taken consistently over time. In this case, over 12 weeks. So not so good for cold and flu the day you have it, but very good for boosting the immune system over time. These are the kinds of distinctions that we learn as you train to be a professional herbalist. Let's talk about some things for viral infections on everybody's mind, I know. So virus particles don't have an actual body, and they're not independently alive. They can only function when they enter your cells and turn your cells into virus factories. So the only way we can treat virus is to stimulate the immune function and or support the tissue. So in the case of COVID, I'm not making a claim to cure COVID here in this class, but COVID is a respiratory disease. And so we might use things that bump up immune system, let's say increase white cell production, and things that fortify the tissue of the lung where the virus is infecting. And then we can also treat the symptoms as needed, things like fever or cough. One of the things that traditional herbalism does in every system everywhere is to sweat it out when you have the flu. That was very, in whatever culture your ancestors came from, and if you're indigenous to North America, then your ancestors had these techniques as well. Otherwise, everybody else is an immigrant, and you came from somewhere where people use diaphoretics, things that make you sweat for the flu. So generally speaking, they tend to be warming and they enhance perspiration. And we know from thousands of years of clinical use that they help people get over viral infections faster. So they tend to reduce headache and congestion. And we use them in the acute stage of cold and flu with fever, which we would call surface diseases because they're affecting a surface of your body, in this case, the surface of your lungs. So respiratory infection all over the world, Chinese medicine would call this to expelling the invasion of evil qi. So there are some cooling diaphoretics. We use those with fever, and heating diaphoretics. We use those with chills. So we learn to distinguish the application of these things for the particular individual. So warming diaphoretics, for example, would be things like basil or cinnamon. Cooling diaphoretics that reduce body temperature through sweating would be things like catnip and chrysanthemum. Let me mention one herb that I just love. I learned about this herb probably 45 years ago, and I just fell in love with it. And every day I learn more about it. This is an Ayurvedic herb called guduchi. It's the Swiss Army knife of herbs. It does so many things, anti-aging kinds of things, supporting the immune system in the long run, treating acute flu in the short run, so many things. So here's a scientific name. Give you a bunch of details here. Again, you can go back to this if you're interested in more of these details. So look at all the things that it does. Increases white blood cell effectiveness, pretty well researched scientifically. It's a diuretic, of course, urinary diseases, kidney issues, so many things. It's a climbing vine that in the wild climbs up trees in the forest, but it's now cultivated in Asia, and people grow it on a pole, like you would grow pole beans or something like that. So a long-term immune booster, again, this is something that can't hurt you, should be easily available. You can find it on the internet. And so we use a low dose for long-term support of the immune function, but you can use an acute dose as tea. It's the stem that we use. So you could use as much as you needed to treat active cold and flu. You might use something like 6 to 15 grams in a tea or capsules. Again, easily available, and smaller doses over time. So a maintenance dose, a couple grams a day as an anti-aging herb, does so many things. So it's easily available as powder, and 2 to 10 grams, somewhere in that neighborhood, would be a good daily dose. It's available as pills. You want to take it that way, and high dose for acute situations. Another similar herb is kalmeg, which means king of the bitters. This is another Ayurvedic herb. Very cold, very bitter, very intense herb, but a lot of great scientific research on this over just the last 5 years. This is an herb that grows in the Arctic regions of Eurasia. And most of the study on this has been done out of Scandinavia. So Antigraphis has become very popular for treating cold and flu in those kinds of contexts. So we use the above ground portion, the stem and the leaf, and we use it to treat cold and flu primarily, but we now have a lot of good research on it being anti-inflammatory and such things like this. So for acute viral infection, again, not likely to hurt anybody, quite available, cold and bitter, as I mentioned. Enhances digestion. Antigraphis is cultivated in India. The guy in white is the farmer. The guy with the black pants is an agricultural agent who came out to inspect the field and just check on how things are doing. So here this farmer is growing Antigraphis as a profitable crop, like farmers here might grow corn or beans. He's growing Antigraphis to go into this worldwide market of natural medicine for the flu. So if you want to try, Antigraphis is much more used for acute situations than it is for long-term building. We talked about garlic and guduchi for long-term building. Antigraphis, a dose of something like 1 to 10 grams. I like it a lot. I use it a lot, very effective, very much backed up by research. Here it is growing in the wild. So it's going to look like this when you get it for to make into tea, otherwise available as pills. Okay, so we're about to have some Q&A time. Amy, what have you got for the next steps for us before we go into Q&A?
Right, I have lots of questions. I've been typing away feverishly, so hopefully we've got everybody's questions either answered, or I flagged a few to talk with the group about here. So again, yes, you will receive a recording of today's live streamed presentation. The slide deck is quite large, so we will not be sending that out.
Are we ready to go right into Q&A?
Yes, I think that we are. So I'm just scanning. I think I have a couple more questions. I just posted the website to the chat for the integrative, for the Herbalism program. Within there, if you're curious to understand more of which specific topics are addressed each term, you can look in that website, and it lists high-level topics, but kind of what to expect in each of the terms. Let's see. So KP, we've had questions about working with the live herbs, making tinctures, any tools that are needed. Can you speak a little to if that is covered during the program, or how you guide students in those?
Yeah, this is a clinical course. It's designed to produce practitioners. There's a widespread misunderstanding that herbalists are wildcrafters, and certainly some herbalists are wildcrafters, but clinical practice and wildcrafting tend to be separate occupations. There are some who do both, but either one is a lifetime study. So clinicians usually use herbs that have been harvested in some other way by other people. So commercially available products that you would buy from a vendor, and your clients then could buy a pound of loose herb to make as a tea, or they could buy pre-prepared capsules or anything like that. So no working with live herbs in class. We will teach you about preparations. It's not a class to teach you how to make things specifically. You can't really make things yourself as a clinician profitably. That's another common misunderstanding, is that people think that if they make tinctures with vodka in their basement, they'll be able to make them economically. But commercial companies are making tinctures, and they know what they're doing, and they know how to make tinctures correctly. So they're making them in 500-gallon vats, and there's no way we can compete with them in terms of economies of scale. So making quarts of tinctures in your basement never works out economically for people. So we'll tell you how these things are made. It's all low-tech processes. I mean, it's easy to explain. And with those explanations, you could proceed to make these things in your kitchen if you chose to, but there's a lot of nuance about how to make them properly. And most people don't end up really producing viable medicine unless they've taken a pretty extensive course in how to do that. That's not this course. Those courses are available. If you want to be a medicine maker, that's another matter. So, as I mentioned, I was the research scientist for Yogi Tea for 30 years. And so that's what I did, was supervise making medicines in all kinds of various different ways. But their medicine making is another whole career. So there's a lot to learn about these things. Tinctures have been made for hundreds of years at least, maybe thousands of years. And all the nuances have been worked out. But tinctures are typically used only in Western herbalism. So we don't know much about tinctures except from the Western herb side. So just to mention it again, you can't just make a tincture out of any old herb. If you take an herb, let's take the herb astragalus, which was in that Codonopsis soup I talked about. That's an herb that's never been tinctured in human history. Chinese medicine doesn't make tinctures, and so we don't know where to start. We don't know the proper process to produce viable medicine. It takes decades or generations to work that out, and we don't have that for astragalus. You'll find astragalus tincture in every single health food store, but how the manufacturer chose to make it, we don't know, and it was likely, unfortunately, frankly, just guesswork. So is it going to work or not? Well, astragalus, the active ingredients are water soluble, not alcohol soluble. So it's been used as a tea for thousands of years. We know it works that way, but tincture is going to be iffy. In any case, so that's the answer to that question.
All right, thank you. Had a question about some of the services available through PCC for students with disabilities. Yes, PCC has a really strong department and a lot of resources for students with a variety of disabilities that they can serve. Regarding the specific, I may not have this pronunciation correct, but the Kurzweil reader, I can't speak to that, but if you email me at the email address on the screen, I'm happy to connect you with that department, and they can more thoroughly answer that question and make sure that we do provide those resources. We are also in the process of migrating a lot of our online learning platform to HTML format so that it will automatically have improved accessibility, and we hope to have all of that in place by the winter term. So let's see. This is a CEU program as well, so a lot of people have been asking about the certificate, certification, professional development. So both PCC and KP's Institute will issue you certificates. Educational institutions can issue a certificate of completion, they can issue a graduation diploma, but we can't issue certifications. Those are established by independent bodies, often boards or organizations such as the American Herbalist Guild. So that is why you take the educational requirements from educational institutions, and that becomes part of the checklist of criteria by which you can apply for your certification by a larger governing body. In addition to that, I want to be really clear that for each of the terms that you enroll in, so all 3 terms of the program, you earn 45 continuing education units, or CEU hours. So for many people who are professionals in various fields, they utilize those hours to meet the requirements that they have for their board and maintaining their certification. Most fields don't require more than 45 hours every 2 years. I mean, many it's only 20 hours. In some fields it's more, but for many professionals, that 45 hours is sufficient. So if you're completing the full year program with over 130 hours, you will have more than what you need. We have not currently maintained, have applied for CEU approval by any specific board because we serve so many different people in different states and different countries, and each of those boards has some pretty hefty fees for their approval process. We would have to really boost the tuition to cover all of those various fees. But we found that most students that are utilizing that CEU option can go ahead and present to their governing organizations that they're doing this program, share the syllabus, KP's credentials, their certificate, and about 90% of the time those boards recognize this and approve that. It just may not be through their regular channels, but there's usually a way for you to still go ahead and get that certification or those CEU hours count towards your continued renewal and things. And Laura, I will look into the registered dietitian. If there's not a hefty fee with that, I'm happy to, if there's not a fee with that, I'm happy to explain that. So, thanks. And let's see. We've had a few questions about the internships, year-long programs, case studies, the clinical hours required by American Herbalist Guild, and all kinds of things there. So I know KP, neither of us are experts in what the American Herbalist Guild's current requirements are, but KP, can you speak a little bit to the internship? We're getting quite a few questions on that aspect of that for people that are wanting to have that level of
Yeah, I can cover it very briefly. It's not part of the PCC program, so in fairness to PCC, just not going on and on about it, but what tends to happen is that we get a lot of people who take year 1 and they are interested in it for all kinds of reasons. So some people, that's enough. So then year 2, there's a diminution of the audience, and those are people who are more serious and want to go on to that next level of professional training. For the American Herbalist Guild, there's then a certain requirement for clinical hours. And again, not to speak for them, I was the president of that organization, but I don't want to make a mistake and lead you astray. So you should check with them. But they require clinical hours, which again, you can get on your own just by practicing, or you can get through formal internship. My school, this course that we're talking about here is essentially a joint venture between my school and PCC. And so in my school, you can then, we offer an internship program, which is 6 months long. And it's a mixture of nutritionists and herbalists, and it's designed to give you those clinical hours. And that course meets 1 weekend a month for 6 months. And we put real people in front of the camera and actually do real cases all day long, all weekend, 2 long days for each weekend. And that adds up to a lot of cases. And then you use those, you go home and put in the hours you need to study them and follow through and all that. And all together, it adds up to the internship that the American Herbalist Guild wants. That's the basics of it. If you have much more detailed questions, you can feel free to email me. You can email me through Amy's website, which is on the screen right now. You can go to my website, just use my name, search, and you'll find it, and just use the contact.
Your website is in the last chat that I posted for everyone.
Okay, yeah, easy to find it. And you know, if you have more detailed questions, I'll respond individually.
Thank you. Um, So just to give you a few next steps, if you are interested in joining us for the fall term program, you can always contact me at the information on the screen there. But as part of follow-up to this webinar, as I mentioned, we'll send out a recording of the webinar, and then we will also send in that same email, I'll include information on registering and the links that you can utilize to do that. If you are an international student, the registration link is not the best option. So please contact me separately and I'll connect you with a pathway. Our system doesn't take non-zip code, non-US addresses very easily. So save you some trouble there and just contact me directly and we'll figure that out. And so to clarify the pricing, it is $999 per term, but only 3 terms. PCC is term-based, so a lot of schools and colleges and universities are semester-based, so you're used to the 3 semesters, the fall, spring, and summer. At PCC, we have 4 terms, each that are about 11 to 12 weeks apiece. Summer is a little abbreviated. And so this program is delivered over 3 of those terms. So the total cost for the first year of the program is approximately $3,000. The books, again, are about $100 if you're going on the little bit more bargain used book prices, and could be maybe triple to quadruple that if you're wanting everything brand new and sparkling. And yes, email me and I'm happy to go ahead and share with you the book list. Oh, and maybe we posted that online here. Somebody might have just found a little chip. It's not letting me open this while I'm doing this. Anyway, we can certainly get you the book list. And I did try to post that online, but we had some trouble with our web team. So, oh, good, they got that fixed in time for this. Oh, how perfect. So yes, in the chat, much thanks to Karen. The book list is listed there, so you do not need to email me for that. It is in the chat menu there. And yeah, so we did price it earlier this year. It was around $65 used and up to $260 new. But of course, books and prices change all the time, so those are approximate. And we've got listed on that website both the required texts. Again, those are only needing to be purchased for the first time that you take the program, and you can start the program any of those 3 terms, fall, winter, or spring. And in the chat, I did include the approximate dates for each of those terms. But if you were to start the program this September, you would end the program in June of 2021. So we call it a year, but it's really about 9 months shy of the summer term there. So the textbooks are listed, and then also the recommended books. Obviously, KP can recommend many, many more books if you have specific questions or areas of interest, but these are the general, kind of the primary ones, and then the next set that provide resources for the most common questions and interests. So any other questions at this time? And we can certainly unmute you if you would like. We've got 5 more minutes. Okay. Great. Well, as more questions, if questions do come up, you have my email address. You know how to reach KP as well through his institute. He, as he mentioned, is easy to Google. We are happy to help answer your questions, and I'm happy to help get you registered. Again, fall term is often a very busy term, so I encourage you to start that process early. KP, there's a question about muscle testing. Is that something that you teach in the program?
No, muscle testing is not taught whatsoever in this program. We do teach some diagnostic information in the first year, but that's not the main focus. And the reason is because most people come to you already diagnosed. So it's the first year is thin on diagnosis. The thing about this course is that it's just bare to the bone, stripped down to herbal knowledge only, basically. So maybe 15% other things. We do talk about some diet and some things like that a little bit, but probably about 85% just core herbalism. Now, in the second year, that's one of the main emphasis is uh, diagnosis. So no muscle testing taught in these courses, but we do talk about tongue and things like that.
Well, thank you all so much. I'm so glad that you guys have spent some time with us this evening, and it looks like from the chat, so many of you are really appreciative of the information, and it's answered a lot of questions for you. I'm so glad that we could be with you, and appreciate all of your time. Hope to see you soon.
Good night, everyone.